Research shows that only about 19% of people maintain their New Year's resolutions by the end of a 2-year period. Close to 30% break through their promises by the end of week 1. If you're anything like me, you probably want to figure out how to be one of those 19% and want to stop breaking your habits. Then this video is for you. Hi friends, welcome. If you're new here, I'm Paul. I'm a full-time ER doctor. I'm a department chief. I maintain a side business and have a toddler who never stops moving. This channel is all about finding ways how to live in the chaos and free up at least 2 hours a day and then use that time to improve our lives. Over the years, I've struggled a lot with keeping up with habits.
I'm a failure.
But the truth is, I could never maintain my current schedule without having some sort of a regular routine. And I was lucky enough to have several mentors that have taught me their mindset shifts that nudged me along the right path. And today will be day 827 that I've consistently maintained my morning schedule. So in this video, I'd like to take a deep dive into what I've learned from my past failures, what understanding burnout can teach us about consistency, and what I do differently now to keep my habits up and how I track them. At the end of the video, I will outline all the planning steps I now take every year to make my habits stick. Hopefully you find some of my experiences useful and you can see how you can apply that to your own lives. When I was early in my career, I tried a bunch of different things. I read a bunch of books on habits, but I kept failing. In my last year of residency, I worked with a doc who maintained a crazy work schedule. This guy had a family, he worked ER shifts, but was still somehow able to find time for his cycling hobby.
How does he do that?
When I eventually cornered him and asked him for advice, he taught me 3 important things. Habits are for life, habits should define who you are, and instead of thinking about making new habits, spend some time thinking about why you failed in the past. The concept of burnout is a big deal in my world. It seems kind of silly to spend a decade and a half to learn a skill and then burn out before you have a chance to retire. So it's a huge topic in emergency medicine and something we talk about often. So I started thinking about my experiences of failing my daily routines as kind of a habit burnout. Well, we can measure it. There's a scale called the Maslow Burnout Inventory, and it's a scale that looks at 3 key areas to define why we eventually become unhappy, burn out, and give up on our work. So let's talk about these 3 parts of burnout, how they ruin our habits, and 2 practical ways how to fix each one of them. The first measure of burnout described in the Maslow inventory is cynicism. I think of cynicism as sort of not believing that you can achieve your habit goal, probably because expectations do not meet reality. Like, how long do you guys think it takes to establish a habit? Put your thoughts down in the comment below because I'm curious to see what you think. I always thought it's like 30 days, maybe 60 days of a daily streak. And it turns out I was wrong. Psychocybernetics sounds like something from an episode of Black Mirror, but it's actually a pretty iconic book written by Dr. Maxwell Maltz in 1960. He's a plastic surgeon, and he sometimes found that his patients did not feel happier despite going through transforming their appearance. They were physically different, but did not feel different inside. Maltz then said that it's our self-image and how we think about ourselves that guides our happiness and self-perception. So we're kind of like computers, where our subconscious will carry out any task in the background, but it's the mind that sets that task up. Maltz promoted the daily positive habit of meditating and building a positive self-image for at least 21 days. Maltz also backed this theory up because he saw that his patients needed at least 21 days to kind of get used to their appearance, so he advocated for that number quite strongly. Based on that, it became popular knowledge that positive habits take at least 21 days to establish. The book sold millions, and it was extremely popular, but somehow in the game of global broken telephone, the word at least got lost, and it became common knowledge that any habit takes a total of 21 days to form.
Well, I read that wrong.
But what if we take a look at how long research shows it would actually take to form a habit? Well, the reality is it takes closer to 8 to 9 months at least. Remember that in psychology terms, habit is something we do automatically, without any reward or thought. I always think about brushing our teeth as the only true habit we all have, because we brush our teeth with no reward, we do it regardless of circumstances or the type of day we've had. In animal research, we can go as far as 1980s, where researchers like Adams found that it takes about 500 repetitions with reward to establish a strong habit in rats. For a daily human habit, that's like over a year. Often quoted human studies that use questionnaires suggest about 254 days, oddly specific, which is around 9 months. So I first realized that if I wanted my expectations to meet reality, 9 months is the timeline I should have been aiming for. Reading through all these motivational books, I also used to think that only a perfect streak could turn into a real habit. I was always discouraged by the guilt of skipping a day, but it always happened. Part of it was that the habit was too complex, something we're about to talk in just a minute. Part of it was shift work, because it kind of sucks to hit the gym after a night shift.
Is getting too fat and too lazy.
And part of it was just laziness. Interestingly, studies into conditioning in both humans and animals show that we can skip a day and still form strong habits just fine. When I kind of read the research and accepted it, I felt very free. This idea was probably made most famous by Matt D'Avelia's video on 2-day rule. It means that you can skip a single day, but never 2 in a row. I found that as long as I was okay with a 2-day rule and skipping a day once in a while, and I was expecting a habit to take about 9 months or a year to form, I was much less cynical about actually succeeding, and I was always on track, and it was way more motivating. The second measure of burnout scale is sense of personal accomplishment. It's pretty straightforward. We burn out because we don't feel accomplished, we don't feel encouraged along the way. For me, it was always around 3 to 4 months where I would feel discouraged, mainly because I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere and I wasn't getting towards my goal. There's a technique in cognitive behavioral therapy called reframing. Reframing just means changing how we perceive something that's outside of our control. The glass half full or glass half empty is probably the most famous example. It's all a matter of perception. But reframing can be extremely powerful in our lives. Let's think about our drive to work. Like, for example, we can think of our drive to work as being really annoying. We sometimes get in the car and think, I can't believe I have to drive to work today. But when you look at the past few years and realize how many thousands of people have lost their jobs recently, they don't have to drive to work, and they also can't make rent. So you could just say, I can't believe I get to drive to work. And that instantly reframes your emotions around that action. So I looked at ways that I can learn to reframe my sense of personal accomplishment around my habits. And I came across a phrase that helped me do just that. It's called measure the gain, not the gap. It's a phrase made by Don Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy as they wrote more in their book, The Gap and the Gain. I've left a link below the like button. The concept is very simple, but it's extremely effective. Essentially, it means that instead of comparing yourselves to the goal that you're trying to get to, you should stop and compare yourself to you of the past.
That's genius.
That makes us appreciate how much more we've already accomplished and can motivate us way easier. So whenever I fell down, I could just compare myself to me of last year. That guy did no push-ups at all, and I kept a 10-daily push-up streak going for like 2 months. Sure, there's some skip days here and there, but that's still better than that guy, and that's still progress. Another way reframing can be super helpful is to change how we see the habits in relations to ourselves. That precept I talked about earlier always identified himself as a cycler. Like, he had photos of his cycling trips on the walls, he talked about his gear and his cycling buddies. Not cycling regularly was not even a possibility for him. You see, in the past, I've always seen routines as a task list to be checked off. I wrote down long habit statements, like I'm going to the gym every day for 3 months for 45 minutes because I want to become healthier and lose 15 pounds. 25-year-old me would think this is a great statement. I was always taught to make SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-sensitive. But 25-year-old me also failed going to the gym consistently for like 6 years. Instead, I now reframe that statement into changing how that habit adds to my sense of identity, and my perception of personal accomplishment is linked to that. Now I say I'm the kind of person who goes to the gym at least 4 times a week. That's it. It removes any complexity, any months or minutes. I still write out the steps when I plan my habits out, but that's how I think about the habit every day. And it helps break barriers or helps you feel less lazy whenever you feel like you don't want to do it. It just instantly stumps any objections I can have in my head. Why do I have to go to the gym today? Because I'm the kind of guy that does. Do I have to go after my shift? Yes, because I'm the kind of person that needs to hit his 4 days a week. As long as my actions match my identity, I would feel way more accomplished and more motivated. So if it takes 9 months to establish a habit, we need to make it super simple and easy so we don't get tired. Let's tackle the last pillar of burnout, emotional exhaustion. I sort of think of exhaustion as emotional fatigue and decision fatigue. I think emotional fatigue comes from trying to do too much. We always have these grandiose plans when we plan our habits out, like I want to get to the gym and get a six-pack. So if you're anything like me, you read up on exercise plans, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, write it all up, but what I fail at is actually getting to the gym consistently.
I couldn't do it.
Honestly, it's just too much. It's exciting in the beginning, but overwhelming to keep it up. What I've realized is that it's much easier to only plan for the first step of the habit. Your goal is still to get to the gym for a year, but the habit is actually getting to the gym parking lot, not the exercise part. If you get to the gym parking lot, what are you gonna do? You're already there, so you might as well go in. But if you don't get into the car, you will for sure never get to the treadmill. So now I try to figure out the easiest way to just get to that first part of the habit. That's all I really care about. The best way I found is trying to remove any possible reasons not to go. Like James Clear in his book Atomic Habits talks about leaving your gym clothes right beside your bed or shoes right beside your door. Those have worked well for me. I personally plan out my morning the night before. I put the gym bag in the trunk, I preset the coffee maker so that it's ready when I get up, and then I don't actually drink the coffee, I reward myself with it when I get to the parking lot. As another example, right now I'm working on the habit of checking my work email only once a day and completing something called Inbox Zero. It's an idea of either replying right away or categorizing your emails into actions so that your inbox is always empty. In order to make it easier or remove any thinking, I just leave my computer on overnight. I open the email window the night before. All I have to do when I wake up is move my mouse, wake up the computer, and the email window is up and ready. And yes, I reward myself with a cup of black coffee. Decision fatigue, on the other hand, comes from spending energy fitting your habit into the day. For me, that's a hard part. I always imagine a perfect day that I'd wake up at 5 a.m., hit the gym, like I always forget to account for life hitting the fan. If I was in a surgery rotation and I woke up at 4 a.m., it's easy to get to the gym in the morning. But if the rotation changed and I now work late nights, it would throw me off because I'd have to spend energy thinking about when and how do I get to the gym that day. We all live in some sort of a daily chaos, and I think the answer is not to try to structure that chaos, but learn how to live within it. So to avoid having those fatiguing decisions, I now pre-plan what-if scenarios. I pre-plan that if I come home late, I hit this other gym on my way home. If I travel for work and I stay in a hotel, I know that I have to book a hotel with a gym inside of it. If my wife and I go away for a weekend, I know that I can do some push-ups and maybe some stretching and count that as my gym for the day, but I have to wake up 45 minutes before she does. I pre-decide what I do after my night shifts. Do I move the workout to the evening if I sleep in? That way, when these scenarios happen, because they inevitably do, I don't have to spend energy on deciding. I just follow what I've pre-written, and it cuts down on decision fatigue massively. Finally, I keep my habit list simple by using something called habit stacking. It's a popular method that had whole books written about it, like Atomic Habits or Tiny Habits. So let's talk about while I show what I do every year when I sit down and plan my year out. Now, the system that I've found has worked well for me over the past years is the following. First, I do less. I only planned for 3 habits for 2 years. Simply realizing that habits are forever from the precept I talked about earlier was liberating. Like if you think that you have 20 or 40 or 50 years to get the benefits of your habits, you realize that you don't have to start everything right now. Just start somewhere and then add on next year as you establish your routines. I split my habits into 3 categories. The simple one, a daily 5-minute or less habit that is extremely easy and I don't have to care that much about. The main one, that's the somewhat regular or daily habit that takes about 30 to 60 minutes. That's the one I actually care about developing this year. And the big one. This one is usually weekly and complex. It definitely takes more than 9 months to develop, but it's there as a chance to sort of work on something bigger and carry into the next year. I expect each habit to take at least 9 months to a year to develop, but I focus on learning to maintain them forever. I start with just the simple one. The 5-minute habit needs to be extremely easy. For me, I've been taking a vitamin D tablet every single day, never skipping more than 1 day, and carrying a little supply with me in my work bag and in my car for the past 3+ years. It takes just a few seconds, and I still plan for different scenarios, like being at work or being in the car. It's not because I care that much about the vitamin D intake, but it's just so extremely easy, and it was fast and simple, so it was easy to stick to for months. After 3 months, I would add or habit stack the main habit that I care about the most and tack that after the easy take the vitamin D thing. For example, 47 days a week after taking my vitamin D tablet, I would do 20 push-ups. It's a minimum of 4 days because I can't skip more than a day in a row in a week, and I do it because I'm the kind of person who does daily push-ups. I don't have to think about when I do it because I just do it after taking vitamin D. It makes it a super simple action, removes the decision of when because it's linked to the first habit. If I skip or delay vitamin D, the push-up one just follows. If I take my vitamin D at work, I do my push-ups at work. Whenever I feel discouraged, I sit down and measure the gain from the last year, and if I skip a day, I don't feel guilty because of my 2-day rule and the expectations of all of this taking at least 9 months being so realistic. Finally, usually around 3 months after, I tack on the weekly habit, like planning out my meals for the next week. That one's harder and probably will take longer to stick to, but it's encouraging because the first 2 have been so consistent for months. I don't use fancy ways to track my habits. I use a large sticky note on my mirror or a simple app called the Loop Habit Tracker on my phone. It doesn't require an account, it has a widget on your home screen and can graph your consistency out. I hope that some of this was helpful to you. If you found any value, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I would love for us to chat in the comments below and learn about what you guys have found to be helpful for you and your experiences. I'm planning on more topics like this on this channel, currently working on a video about what we can learn from how Toyota beat Ford in the American car market and how we can apply those methods to our own lives. Thank you very much for watching and getting to the end of the video. If you want to learn about neuroscience hacks and how we can force our attention to be more focused, click this video now.